Who has, just to help gauge where people are at the moment, either by turning on your video and raising your hand, or raising your hand using the reaction button, or as well in the participant, who has something that they feel they can contribute right now to the proposal, something you'd like to say from what you've heard this morning? Okay. Good. So I wonder if we can just start, before we break out into discussions, I think when we hear somebody speak, and we'll begin to have opinions then based on this and how we can improve it. So I should really have my glasses on. I can't see the names here very well. Milt, was that how you pronounce your name?
Yeah, Milt Markowitz, yeah.
Okay. Me. So you raised your hand. So what?
Well, I was kind of wondering where we were going with this, but then when Robyn talked, I really got much more connected, because and recognized that the contemplative way that is being expressed isn't just about contemplation at all. It's about something much more than that. And that I'm really glad they're looking at other models. And I think we ought to be listening and learning from those cultures who have lived this spiritual way for millennia. And I guess my third thought about it was that this is a very anthropocentric view. It's repeated over and over again. It's about humans. And the notion of solving whatever issues we have with ourselves first, I think is backwards. I think, as I listen to people who talk about that, it's like you can't really get there without a sense of community, and you can't really get there without a sense of all life and how it all exists in nature from creation on. And so that sequence, I think, needs to be changed. I think that when we disconnected from nature 4,000 to 6,000 years ago, then it just put all of these issues that we have now on steroids. And particularly when we accepted the translation, or created the translation of the scriptures to create dominion over other species. I think we've just been on steroids ever since. So we have some ethical issues now that we need to address, and that's what spiritual education, I think, should be about. Not focusing so much on the issues themselves, because what we do is react to them, but focus on what are the guiding principles and the ethic, really, what underlies that ethic, and how do we get the kids to think for themselves? We shouldn't be pouring information into their head. It's about getting the kids not only to think for themselves, but to have them have embodiment experiences where they find a truth within themselves about creation and nature. So, thank you.
Great. I've taken down some points there. Beautiful. Thank you. Does anybody have anything else? Yes, Robyn.
Well, I wanted to make sure that all of you have looked at the sample curriculum slides on the Shin website, because I do believe we go into the connection between not only humans and animals, but humans and plants, and the transfer of energy, the study of Reiki, the proof that plants have energy now, scientific experiments showing energy transfers from one plant to another plant. I mean, all of that is included in some of those curriculum slides. So we are trying to address those down-to-earth concept of everything being joined. We do plan on bringing in small bits of spiritual messaging from prophets and seers and philosophers, but we're trying to go lightly on any kind of real religious concepts, because typically school systems don't like that. So we're trying to bring those ideas in gently through the scientific connections. And then teachers obviously have the ability to go wherever they want to go with these things, depending on the school, the age of the children, and so forth. But I do encourage you to look at that sample curriculum. It's a series of 6 different lessons that lead you from the basis of, you know, the discovery of energy in the atom to how we all have energy and we affect each other. We affect the plants, we affect animals, we affect the trees, we affect the earth in general. And trying to get young children to start absorbing these concepts that we already know.
Thank you, Robyn. I think we always tend to get ahead of ourselves. You know, I mean, like, we've only seen a part of it and there's more to come, and I recognize that. I do think that in all that, I hope that we can recognize that there are cultures who have understood the quantum reality for millennia. This is not a new thing. And I would encourage everybody to read Blackfoot Physics, because I think that David Pete explains really well how other cultures have intuited the quantum reality.
Thank you. Rajendra? Yep.
First of all, we are talking about education. We are talking about heritage. We are talking about the spiritual. Now, to education, by education I mean that we learn certain things. And when we want to learn certain things, there's an aim. This is what I want to learn. And then we decide how we want to learn that. And that part is completely missing in so far. We don't have an aim. We don't know how we learn. I don't know whether you have ever thought about how we learn things. But we talk about many things without telling us what they mean. What is a particle? What is science? Those words have never been explained to us. Education, I'm explaining something we learn in order to elevate ourselves. That's the meaning of education. Now, what that something is, Christine, you can tell me, answer to 2 questions. Do you think you exist? Do you think you are there talking to me?
Absolutely.
Are you conscious of me, what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Then your existence and your consciousness, can I challenge that? You don't exist, you are not conscious. Can I challenge that? Would you believe me? Do you think anyone will believe me?
Yeah.
If they do not exist, they are not conscious.
Mm-hmm.
So that becomes the primary aim. What is existence and what is consciousness?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. If that becomes the primary aim, then there is a model. Lots of models are there. Now, learning to learn was the first model I presented in the year 2016 in India. And learning to learn can be divided into 4 parts. And that's where Jhaji's model of Sankhya and Yoga comes in. Now, these 2 words, Sankhya gives us a theory. It's an intellectual development. Yoga gives us a practice, which elevates us from a lower level of consciousness to a higher level of consciousness. And the learning is done through the ways of yoga. How does it happen? First of all, whatever is outside, it impacts us physically, either on our eyes when we see things, objects, or on our ears when we hear words, or we touch, we smell, we taste. These are the way the physical things are coming from outside and impacting on our physical existence. And these can be explained on the basis of science. This is what the science is. How do we explain whatever we are observing in the world? That's the basis of science. Anything we observe. If we cannot observe, we can make instruments to make even a small objects be observed and base our theory on that. But Now you tell me, Christine, if somebody passes you by and your mind is somewhere else, do you notice him?
No.
No. So to learn, our mind must be connected with whatever being impacted on our organs of ears or eyes or whatever that is. Now we are going from a physical level of existence to a mental level of existence. That means we are moving from physical consciousness to mental consciousness. That's the first step in learning. Now, can you think of two things at the same time? Anyone present here? Can you think of two things at the same time? That means mind cannot absorb two things at a time. Then to learn, we must keep the same thing we want to learn about in the mind for a longer period of time so that we can analyze it. And that is called dharana in yoga philosophy. We hold the things we want to learn about for a longer period of time. And that's where ego comes in. Ego holds that thing in mind. And once it comes in the mind, we begin to analyze, intellectually analyze. And we are not at a higher level of education. Intellectually, we analyze things. Intellectually, we find about whatever comes in our mind or we hear through the ears. Intellectually, we analyze and propose a theory. Okay. Now we are at an intellectual level of consciousness. My process of learning is telling me how we advance from physical to mental to intellectual. And Christine, you are at a spiritual level of consciousness when you insisted you exist and you insisted that you are conscious. That's the highest level of consciousness where no affirmation is needed. You know you are. You know you are conscious. To elevate from intellectual level or intelligence consciousness to spiritual consciousness is the aim of the education. And that aim is not clear anywhere. Jhaji mentioned that Sankhya is the philosophy which tells us how we have come out of ultimate reality, which is existence and consciousness. And yoga tells us how we can reach that ultimate reality. It's all laid out perfectly about at least 2,000, more than 2,000 years ago, all completely laid out. Now, what were you talking about? Going around in circles. By the way, Christ was not born at that time when the theory was laid. Muhammad was not born at that time when the theory was laid. Now, what we are swayed by, what I call the artificial intelligence. You have real intelligence when you say you exist. I exist, that's real intelligence. Where matter exists, body exists, mind exists, that's artificial intelligence. That's a cultural influence. Whether God exists, I don't know whether God exists, but I know I exist. So that's fundamental to me. If I can prove God exists, I'll accept it. But to accept that God exists is artificial intelligence. So all these things have to be built in the model if somebody is willing to listen to it. Thanks.
Thank you. So why don't we, so it seems it's good if we've got some thoughts brewing here. What we'd like to do now so that more people can speak and be heard, because we do only have a limited time, and as Raj pointed out, we can only handle one concept at a time. So we'd like to break into smaller discussion groups and have, if each group can designate one person to take key points that are being discussed. And after 25 minutes or so, we'll bring people back into this main group and reconvene for sharing the key points. And what we would like to do is really, the purpose is to strengthen this proposal. So we're getting some great ideas here and things to consider. We want to make it robust. We want to make it bulletproof. We want to fill in any gaps. What are we missing in terms of presenting this to policymakers so that we can bring this forth and get this contemplative education into our curriculum? So that is the purpose of what we are doing here. So Garimat, are you prepared to put people into breakout rooms? And when Garma does this, you'll see a little note come up that will say enter the room. So you have to click on that button in order to get into your room. And when you're in your groups, just somebody designate or volunteer to be the note taker, the minute taker, or whatever, if you write it down. And then we come back into the main area and we'll share those key ideas. Erin or Emmy, I saw, oh gosh, I should really have glasses on. Emmy, I saw you had your hand up, and Barbara, you as well. So, or Susan, hopefully those ideas can come out in those group sessions. Otherwise, we'll see that you can share in the main group. So Garma, are you ready to put people into groups? Okay.
Yep.
Got it, the recording. Great. So how many had some interesting discussions? Great. Good to see Chuck, Deborah. Awesome. Fred, wonderful. Okay, I as well, some very interesting things. So what we'd like to do at this point is whoever the key representatives or note takers were from those breakout rooms, if you can share, because we couldn't record the breakout sessions, we want to make sure that we capture what was shared in those sessions that could contribute to the strengthening of this proposal and things we may have missed along the way. So would anybody like to start with their share? Chuck, yeah, go for it.
Thank you. Yes, we had a very, very lively discussion, and really it didn't seem like enough time. It never does. But a couple of key points, I think, and others can certainly chime in if they think I missed something. We believe that, well, we had expressed that this truth is within ourselves. It is within ourselves. And we need to catch children really young to affirm for them this truth. It's affirming. It's not creating. It's not constructing. It's affirming and remembering. And that over time, this truth, particularly as children stay in traditional education systems, becomes obscured. So we also see teachers working really hard in our existing education system to try to meet external mandated and often conflicting externally mandated expectations. So those teachers are not really sensing the truth within themselves. And so perhaps this proposal is working too hard on something that is pretty well established in many disciplines and with many perspectives. And the real issue is shifting the focus of the schools to wholeness and agency. So the question is, how do we get a group of people in a school or in schools to really experience this, and experience this from a loving, caring perspective, a living change perspective, and not have it be another external demand placed from an outside group on overwhelmed teachers. And that many of our global issues, whether it's climate change or social justice, stem from our fundamental disconnection from nature and disconnection from wholeness. That's my attempt at a summary.
Beautiful, love it. So, and if I can speak, that ties into what came up in our group, and Chuck, you said it beautifully, that once the experiential aspect is there, then that self-perpetuates the desire to bring that into the educational system. So I think, yeah, if we can speak to getting the teachers on board, and so they can have that experiential experience, then that will help to bring that into the system. And Shiv, so Amy was in our group, and she's an amazing resource in that. So she's talked about, was it the apprenticeship model of learning, which is beautiful. So if we can mention that in the proposal, and I think again, if we target, yeah, we got to get the teachers on board, but otherwise, Amy has contacts with schools where they could bring spiritual leaders into the schools to help facilitate these experiences so that the experience is possible, and then it's not just intellectualizing the concepts, but rather experiencing it. So that was a key takeaway from our group. So yeah, Shiv, definitely we need to get in touch with Amy and her contacts and wealth of knowledge and experiences that she's had with this apprenticeship model. And from the parents' perspective, you know, just there's some parents who may not be open to this, and if we want to introduce it into the school systems, that perhaps maybe taking baby steps and introducing it as an elective or, you know, option, that kind of stuff, so it's not being wham enforced in people's faces, and then they'll be, you know, the whole ego will be up and rejecting it. So those were the key points. And again, Chuck, as you mentioned, it's amazing how these things tie in, but connecting to Mother Earth and, you know, just how to connect with nature and herbs and tie that into the instruction as well. So I don't know if that directly affects the proposal, but definitely maybe if we mention the connection to Earth in there as well. Anybody else want to share from their group? Robyn.
I'm just going to make a kind of a general statement. I know we're all really excited about this, and we all have, it sounds like, some amazing ideas of how we could create this curriculum. That's going to be the really fun part. And maybe we'll have to have another conference once we start creating curriculum, because all of the things you just said would be fabulous. But the first step has to get to the proposal itself. How are we going to get it accepted? And so I want everybody to try and, I hate to squelch your excitement and enthusiasm, because the curriculum part is definitely crucial. And I encourage all of you to start thinking about ways that we can create this curriculum, because that's really, really important. But we've got to get the proposal done first. So keep that in mind. I hate to be a party pooper. And again, you might want to read the sample curriculum we started just to give you a feel for what we're trying to do. So I'm going to let Deborah talk for our group, because she took copious notes.
Okay, I thought since you jumped in, you were doing that for us, so I was going in another direction. I'm focusing on what Christine just said about the elective option. You know, that is certainly one of the things that you're looking for, Robyn, is that avenue into the system. From our session, Dennis gave a really good reflection and idea to create an abstract synthesizing the proposal that would be more of what I'm calling a soundbite for people, as opposed to you know, offering all of the information at first get-go. You know, I asked questions like, you know, where has this been introduced? You know, what policy makers are you guys going after? Because that can mean many different things. And the conversation was certainly smaller schools or districts that are open-minded all the way up to the larger ones. And let's see, Raj talked about the device that Shiv made that can actually measure the focus of mind. So I think coming in with a tangible tool is something else that schools and districts would be interested in as well. Let's see. Did I leave anything out, guys? I have a lot more to say about this, but I want to, you know, pass it around. So it is
one more thought. Yeah, one more thought that kind of plays off of something Deborah said about the soundbite. Definitely there were comments made about how the proposal is too long, that, you know, somebody's going to read something 2 or 3 pages maybe. So somehow we have to try and not share everything about it, sharing the purpose and the mode of operation to achieve our end goal, what the end goal is, but it definitely needs to be a little shorter. I think a lot of people agree with that. So I'll let you go ahead and finish up, Deborah.
I'm sorry. This is Bill. I thought the executive summary might be the focus of that kind of revision, if you would. Something that summarizes the proposal to a degree that, you know, those who might be interested will then go beyond the executive summary.
Yeah, and in my review of the proposal, one of my questions was, I'm just totally foreign to policy makers and what they appreciate, but do big words mean a lot, you know, or do we need to boil it down to layman's terms in this proposal? You know, does it need to be, here's the information, or does it need to be the very scientific lingo? And so what's appreciated and what's accepted?
It depends on which policymakers you're going after. If you're going after principals, if you're going after school boards, if you're going after political legislative policymakers, it's going to take a different type of focus. And this is the process that we went through with restorative justice and restorative practices. And it came from the ground up and became a department, and then it became legislation. And so I don't see, I mean, this is what I've been working on my whole 30+ year career, you know, is exactly what we're doing here today. So keeping that in mind. And, you know, another question is our end goal to transform education? And this feels crass, is the end goal to get curriculum in the schools? Because those are two very different things.
So in our group, we also talked about sort of where do we go with the proposal, and are there alternatives to, you know, public school systems that that might be an initial opportunity. And one idea that came up was getting you know, a school somewhere, perhaps a private school, to model this as kind of a pilot project and to show its efficacy. And then once that's done, then it could be presented to larger groups. I mean, another idea was in terms of, you know, religious denominations that have education, because this talks about sort of what's common to all religions, if this were introduced as an aspect of religious education, that might be another way of putting it forward. And then you know, the other idea was at a sort of higher level, United Nations or countries where there is diversity and want to educate about and for diversity, that this could become a sort of high-level policy document that then would filter its way down to the schools. So these were some of the ideas that came out of our group.
Great summary, Bob.
Yeah, that's great. So do you suggest having the proof of the pilot incorporated into the proposal prior to us presenting it? So Deborah, you've been including this into your classrooms. Do you have concrete measurable results from this, from your children?
I have some results back from the administrators and teachers that I've trained. I've been offering it as professional development. And so, you know, kind of what we're talking about is this meeting in the middle of that. So yeah, the showing the efficacy. So you guys have some results for that as well? Awesome.
That's what we're looking at. That's what we're looking for, right? We don't have that.
Okay.
I mean, we've have past models, right, that we're working from, but to have, you know, something that's a little more current, I think would be beneficial, like in today's world in North America, I think would be beneficial. Shiv, we don't currently have any of that in the proposal, do we? Got to unmute yourself.
There are schools where this kind of model is in use. There's one comes to mind, there's a university in California that teaches integrative education. And there are other places, there's more than one place where this kind of education has been used. They are still using it. It's not given up. I mean, they are change makers who are ahead of this proposal in North America as well as elsewhere.
Okay. So then maybe
University of where, Shiv?
It's in California, School of Integrative Studies. And
yes.
There's one, there are people actually who was here yesterday, last week. What was his name? Deborah Van Zyl and
Andre and Deborah.
Andre, yeah, they're trying it, and there are other people. You know, in URI, there are a lot of people who have been trying different models, and there are people who have actually ventured in there. What we are talking about is taking their work to the systemic level, finding a way to take those smaller examples to a very far-reaching kind of a level.
Mm-hmm. So maybe what's suggested here is if we beef that up in there. And do we have elementary examples for elementary school?
There are elementary schools that have mindfulness. Sammy was talking about in India. There are a lot of schools, you know, what is the name of that actress? She's been pushing.
Goldie Hawn.
Goldie Hawn.
Yeah, doing Mind Up
everywhere. And there are lots of schools where they have actual data. And somebody was asking me whether there is a measure of whether you have attained attention or training of attention. I actually use one of those resources in my teaching of breathing. When I talk of deep breathing, how to calm your mind and how to focus it. There is a biofeedback system called the M-Wave. I use it all the time. And there is a medical insurance company in the United States. What are the Humana? They hire 100,000 people. And the owner or CEO of that company wanted to bring mindfulness into into the corporation. He wanted to teach that so that his purpose was to have people work as in teams more than you know, in coherent teams, so that he can maximize the profit. So, and he had a medical doctors on staff, and he went to them. He said, "This is what I want to do," and they said nothing doing. And then he said, okay, I asked you to do two things. I asked you to look at this biofeedback system that I've been talking about. And I also want you to do some testing of the hormonal testing. So they put people through mindfulness and meditation, and they tested those people for their hormonal changes, and they tested those people with the M-wave biophysiological feedback system, and the doctors were able to change their minds. And then they went system level. And as a result, within a year, that company made enough money to pay everybody 15% across the board increase. So people are not working for themselves. People are working for the company in teams that are very holistic and very harmonious with each other. Mm-hmm. So there are experiences available at the commercial level, as well as companies like Google, Microsoft. They have meditation and they have contemplative methods implemented in their administrative systems. It's a question of doing the proper investigation and getting the data from them. But the problem is we are a very small organization. We don't have the resources to collect all that data. And where we would like your corporation is helping us in gathering that data to strengthen this proposal.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Amy, yeah.
So along those lines of the direct experience of breathing techniques that Shiv is talking about, it goes along with what we spoke of in our group, the importance of this apprenticeship model, where in the ancient days, people actually went and studied hands-on to learn things like glass blowing or carpentry. They saw what it looked like. They felt it. They studied for years with their teacher to get it just right. The same thing with I mentioned surgery. From the Western model. As a nurse, I'll tell you, you can't learn from a book what you need to learn about taking out an appendix. You have to go there and you have to do it with hopefully a master teacher to show you the way, and you have to try it, so that this model that we're moving into is on Shiv's scale. It's beyond the physical, just the physical and the intellectual, but moves into the spiritual. And we have forgotten that these ancient paths still have teachers available who have gone through the apprenticeship model, whether it's in Hinduism or Buddhism or Judaism with the Kabbalah, the Native American system, and they have ways to teach beyond the intellectual model and to give the students these direct experiences. It's going to take us beyond just the way that we're used to teaching, not just teaching from a book. That's not going to do it, because all around them in the world, they're going to forget whatever we have taught them unless they experience it themselves. So as Bob was mentioning a while ago, the idea of bringing this into religious traditions, we might be able to set up at first more experiential programs for students within those kinds of models, or else things like private schools Montessori schools or different schools for young children, that we could get it off the ground so that these children can get these experiences directly. We have to start somewhere. I don't know if they would let us do it in the regular classroom.
Beautiful, thank you. Colleen, Garima mentioned that you might have something to share, just checking in with you.
I'm just listening. This wasn't necessarily what I talked with the other gentleman and his wife, but just listening to the depth of shift that you're beautifully undertaking. It is usually the middle people who maybe in this case would be the policymakers, the religious leaders, the parents, that there would be, if you're really going to work with this holistically and systemically, they would need to somehow be included. And whether it's convinced or willing to step outside their old memories or conditioning, this would be really important to learn about from the communities where this has been successful, how this inclusivity was approached. And will we do it just in small nuggets like you're talking about, pilots, private schools, just in North America, in other contexts? Because I heard the United Nations being mentioned, if we're going to think big like that, we have to understand the power that the veto vote has in stopping things and the resistance that comes from the fear that this will bring up. Because the instinct and the nature of that instinct is going to meet immediate strong belief. You know, it's sinful, it's pure, it's whatever. So no matter how open-minded or sensitive we word the language, that somehow they're become part of the grassroots movement. I don't know how these other communities that are successful are doing this. It would be interesting to hear from them. I was just thinking that.
Great.
But the other gentleman, he was talking about something different. I don't see him here now.
Can I say something to that? Because I'm involved with the URI, United Religions Initiative. They have an NGO designation at the United Nations, and they've gotten into the United Nations a meditation room which is open to all disciplines, and they really are working. I can help you get into those groups if no one else knows it. They're working on this hard, getting this integrative message of all religious traditions. I think they would be open to something like this if it was presented properly.
Awesome. Yes, definitely will be in touch.
That's beautiful, as long as we understand the politicalization of the beauty. It's
Thank
very
you.
powerful.
Thank you. Okay, we are getting close to the end here. Bob, you have your hand up. Do you have something quick you can share?
Yeah, I mean, just to sort of reiterate that I think like some kind of, I mean, Shiv mentioned all sorts of places where this has been implemented. I mean, whether there's been like a, you know, a study published in some kind of scholarly journal, or if not, can we get something like that? I mean, that, because that would be a powerful addition to the proposal.
Excellent.
I don't know if you guys have been following the meditation group that has gotten into multiple schools throughout the United States and the studies that they've done. I can send you that information. It's pretty remarkable what they found out with the children, that they're given 10 minutes of meditation during their day, whether it's the start of the day or later on, and how it has impacted their whole day and how they've done studies on them that show there's less violence and more concentration among these students. Have you heard about this study?
I have. I don't have the information for it. So if you can send, I don't know, Shiv, do you have that information?
The thing is, there's so much information available. I think what is coming out is the need for collecting that information, and it is beyond one person. And I think what we are coming to is organization of a committee to collect that information and to do whatever is needed to collect that information to strengthen the proposal.
Good, beautiful. So yes, I think more hands are needed here to help really to beef this up and get the data. I think that's what I'm hearing is we need more data here to back up the proposal. Okay, Sami, closing remarks in 2 minutes. Can you summarize what you need to say?
Yeah, just wanted to mention this happiness curriculum introduced by the Delhi government in India from the nursery to the 8th class, and it worked wonders, you know, reduced the violence and all among the students. So this is about it. I mean, because I'm in India, so I can just give some ideas.
Can you get that information, Sami?
Yes, sir.
Can you get that information from the school system, whether they have done any measurements?
That is there in the Delhi government schools.
Yeah.
It has been adopted, and it has been very successful.
Yeah, can you get us the report?
This is called the happiness. Okay.
Can you get the information, Sami? Can you?
I'll.
Yeah,
okay. Should I email it? Should I email it later on?
Yep.
Okay.
Great.
All right.
Okay, we are a little over time here, so to respect the rest of everybody's Sunday, we will close. And again, a sincere thank you to everyone for committing 2.5 hours of your Sunday to this cause and this purpose and sharing your energy and your insights with us. We are meeting again next week. That'll be session 3, same time, 10 Eastern to 12:30. It's on the Saturday next weekend. It is Thanksgiving weekend for us here in Canada, so hopefully that doesn't interfere too much with your plans. It would be great to have you participating once again. So with that, many thanks and blessings to you on your day, and thank you, Shiv and Robyn, for your contributions. Much love to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Christine. Thank you so very much. You
Thank you all. Thank you, Shiv, Robyn, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Beautiful.
Thank all of you for working on this.
All right. Enjoy your day, everyone.
Bye.